The calabash of palm wine fell from David's hands. It hit the dusty ground with a loud thud, spilling the yellow liquid everywhere. The entire wedding gathering fell silent. All eyes were on the angry, unfamiliar man who had just stormed into the compound. He pointed a trembling finger straight at Amaka, who was looking beautiful in her expensive wedding attire. "You shameless woman," the man roared, his voice shaking with fury. "Do you think you can run from your past? You destroyed my home, and now you want to destroy another man's life." Amaka's face turned white with fear. David stood frozen, his mouth open in shock. What was happening? Who was this man, and what did he know about his new bride? Hello, welcome to Echoes from the Baobab Tree. Kindly like and subscribe for more amazing stories. Let's continue the love-breaking story. Let us go back, the years before this shocking day. The sun was setting over Enugu, painting the sky in orange and purple. On a quiet street in the GRA neighborhood, two girls, Chama and Amaka, sat on an old wooden bench outside Chama's house. They were both 10 years old, their hair in neat plaits, their school uniforms dusty from playing. They shared a bowl of roasted groundnuts, laughing at a joke only they understood. Their laughter was like music, filling the evening air. They were best friends, closer than sisters. Everyone on the street knew them as the two halves of a kola nut. Chama, the daughter of a strict school teacher, was a calm and gentle girl. She was not the loudest, but her smile was warm and kind. Amaka, whose mother was a petty trader at the Ogbit main market, was the complete opposite. She was lively, bold, and always wanted to be the center of attention. She loved pretty things and would often admire the shiny shoes of other children. Even as little girls, their different natures were clear. But their friendship was strong, built on shared secrets and countless memories. The years flew by like pages turning in a book. Chama, being a hardworking student, gained admission to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, to study accounting. Amaka, who found books difficult, went to a fashion school in Enugu town. Many thought the distance would separate them, but it did not. They called each other every night, their voices a comfort across the miles. During holidays, they would come home and pick up right where they left off, their bond unbroken. One cool December evening in 2018, Chama invited Amaka to a small restaurant. "I have someone I want you to meet," Chama said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. When David walked in, tall, handsome, and dressed in a simple but clean shirt, Amaka's heart did a little jump. "Oh, my sister!" Amaka exclaimed, squeezing Chama's hand a little too tightly. "You have caught a big fish, oh." She laughed, but her eyes stayed on David for a second too long. Chama, lost in her own happiness, noticed nothing. The months that followed were a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Chama, trusting her friend completely, took Amaka along for everything. They went to the market in Onitsha to buy the most beautiful lace for her wedding gown. They tasted different soups and stews for the reception party. Amaka was always there, the perfect chief bridesmaid, full of ideas and support. But at night, alone in her room, Amaka would look at the pictures of David on her phone. A dangerous thought began to grow in her heart: what if he were mine? David was a good and disciplined man. He worked as a manager at a bank on Ogui Road and was respected by everyone. But Amaka was clever. She started visiting his office unexpectedly. "Chama told me you work too hard," she would say, placing a container of hot jollof rice and fried chicken on his desk. "You need to eat well." David was grateful. Her visits were a fun break from his busy day. She made him laugh with stories about her difficult fashion clients. Slowly, without realizing it, David began to look forward to these visits. One Tuesday evening, Chama called David. She sounded very tired. "David, I'm sorry, I can't make it for dinner. This work project is taking all my time." David was disappointed but said he understood. Not 30 minutes later, there was a knock on his door. It was Amaka, holding a packet of spicy soya meat. "I heard my sister stood you up," she said, walking in as if she owned the place. "Don't be angry with her. She is a career woman. But a man needs attention too, you know." Her words were like poison, slowly making David see Chama's hard work as a weakness. The night it happened, it was raining heavily. Amaka had come to David's apartment to discuss a surprise for Chama. By the time she was leaving, the rain was pouring down like a waterfall. "Let me drive you home," David offered. But as they ran to the car, they both got soaked. Standing under the building's shelter, Amaka laughed, her wet dress clinging to her body. She looked into David's eyes. "Thank you for always being so kind," she whispered, moving closer. And then, in a moment of madness, they kissed. The deed was done. The betrayal was complete. David went back inside, his heart filled with guilt, but also a strange, exciting feeling. Amaka, in her taxi, smiled a wicked smile. Her plan was working. After that night, David became a changed man. When Chama called, his replies were short. "I'm busy at work," he would say. "Let's talk later." Chama felt the distance growing but blamed herself for being too busy with work and wedding plans. She decided to make it up to him. One Friday, after closing from her office, she went to the market, bought fresh fish and bitter leaf, and spent hours cooking his favorite soup, of onogbo. The aroma of the delicious soup filled the corridor as Chama stood in front of David's apartment door, a happy smile on her face. She balanced the pot with one hand and knocked with the other. This surprise would surely make him happy. When David opened the door, his face was not happy. It was shocked. Chama, what are you doing here?" he stammered. Her smile faded. "I cooked for you," she said, her voice now unsure. She stepped inside the living room. Her eyes moved from David's guilty face to the 2 wine glasses on the table. Then, they landed on a familiar shiny handbag on the couch. Her heart began to beat very fast. Just then, Amaka walked out of the kitchen, holding a half-empty glass of wine. She froze when she saw Chama. The air in the room became heavy and cold. Time seemed to stop. "Chama, you are here," Amaka finally said, forcing a nervous laugh. Chama could not speak. Her eyes moved from her best friend to her fiancé. The truth was a sharp knife cutting her heart into pieces. She slowly placed the pot of soup on the floor, her hands shaking. "Amaka," she whispered, the pain making her voice crack. "You and David." David stepped forward, his hands raised as if to calm a wild animal. "Chama, please, let me explain. It is not what you think." But what else could it be? Her best friend was in her fiancé's home, drinking wine, looking as comfortable as a wife. Amaka moved closer, her face pretending to be sorry. "Chama, it just happened," she said, her voice trembling with fake tears. "I never meant to hurt you." "You." Chama's voice was now a scream of pure pain. She pulled her arm away from Amaka's touch as if she had been burned by fire. "You, my own sister. You knew everything. My dreams, my fears. And you did this to me." She turned to David, her eyes begging for a different story, but he looked down at the floor, ashamed. "Chama, I'm sorry," he mumbled. "Amaka, she understands me in a way you don't." Those words were the final blow. A sound, raw and painful, tore from Chama's throat. It was the sound of a heart breaking into a million pieces. She turned and ran out of the apartment, not caring that her slippers fell off. She ran down the stairs, tears blinding her, the laughter of her friend and the voice of her fiancé echoing in her ears. The betrayal was complete. The next day, the story spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. "Amaka has stolen Chama's husband," people whispered at the borehole and in the markets. Chama locked herself in her room, drowning in shame and sadness. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. The world she knew had collapsed. Meanwhile, Amaka and David started working together in public, no longer hiding their relationship. Amaka's smile was triumphant. Weeks turned into months. Chama, with the strong support of her family, began to heal slowly. She focused on her work and was given a promotion. She even met a kind colleague named Obina who made her feel valued. But the scar of betrayal remained. Then, one evening, she heard the news: David and Amaka were finally having their traditional wedding introduction ceremony. Her heart felt heavy, but a strange sense of calm washed over her. She decided she would go to the ceremony. She would face them. She would show them that she was no longer broken. The wedding day arrived. The compound in Abakpanaki was full of people, music, and laughter. Chama arrived quietly and sat at the back, her head held high. She watched as Amaka, glowing in expensive beads and coral, danced proudly towards David. She looked like a queen who had won everything. Just as Amaka handed the ceremonial calabash of palm wine to David, a loud commotion erupted at the gate. A tall, angry man pushed his way through the crowd, his eyes burning with rage. He pointed directly at the beautiful bride. The music stopped. Everyone held their breath. What was going to happen now? The angry man, whose name was Mr. Okoro, did not stop. He pushed past a shocked uncle and stood in the center of the wedding circle, his chest heaving. This woman, he boomed, pointing at Amaka, lived in my house in Enugu for 2 years. She ate my food and spent my money while my wife and children suffered. He threw crumpled photographs onto the ground. There was Amaka, smiling in front of Mr. Okoro's car. Another showed her in his living room, surrounded by shopping bags. The evidence was there for all to see. The crowd gasped in unison. The celebration had turned into a courtroom. David felt the world spin around him. The laughter, the music, the proud smiles of his family, it all melted away, replaced by a cold, sickening shame. He looked at Amaka, really looked at her. Her beautiful wedding attire now seemed like a costume. Her face, once so alluring, was twisted in panic. Is this true? David asked, his voice barely a whisper but heard by everyone in the silent compound. Amaka could only stammer, David, he is lying. He is just jealous. But her eyes, filled with terror, told the real story. Without another word, David turned his back on her. He looked at his father, whose face was dark with disappointment. He looked at his mother, who had tears in her eyes. Then, his eyes found Chama in the crowd. She sat perfectly still, her gaze steady and calm. In that moment, David knew the full weight of his mistake. He had traded a queen for a trickster. He walked away, leaving the spilled palm wine, the gifts, and his shame behind him. His entire family, burning with humiliation, followed him out of the compound. Amaka was left alone in the middle of the gathering. She fell to her knees, her beautiful white wrapper staining in the red earth. She wept loudly, but no one came to comfort her. The women who had praised her dancing skills now clicked their tongues in disgust. Her own mother covered her face with her headscarf, weeping quietly from shame. The wedding that was supposed to be her greatest victory had become her most terrible defeat. Later that night, the story was on every lip in Enugu. At the local bars, in the markets, and in family compounds, people talked of nothing else. A snake will always show its true color, the old men said, shaking their heads. She thought her beauty could hide her past, but the past always finds you out. Amaka's name became a warning to others about the dangers of envy and greed. For David, the punishment was a heavy silence. He sat alone in his apartment for days, ignoring calls from work. The memory of Choma's gentle smile haunted him. He remembered how she always put others first, how she never asked for expensive gifts. He had been blinded by Amaka's flashy beauty and empty laughter. He had lost a woman of real value, and the regret was a constant ache in his heart. One afternoon, driven by remorse, David went to Chama's family house. He stood at the gate for a long time, gathering courage. When Chama came out, she looked at peace. She had moved on. David fell to his knees on the ground, something he had never done before. "Chama," he begged, his voice broken. "I was a fool. I was blind. Please, I am so sorry. Forgive me. Give me another chance." Chama looked down at the man she had once loved with all her heart. She felt pity for him, but her love was gone. "David," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I forgive you. But forgiveness does not mean I will forget. The trust between us is broken, like an egg that cannot be put back together. I cannot go back to what we had. I have found my peace, and I wish you find yours." She turned and walked back into the house, her heart finally and completely free. As the months passed, Chama's life blossomed like a flower in the rainy season. Her work continued to thrive, and her kindness attracted good things. Obaina, her quiet colleague, continued to be a faithful friend. One evening, as they walked home together, he stopped her. "Chama," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "I have watched your strength and your good heart. I am not a rich man, but my heart is true. Would you allow me to join my life with yours?" Chama looked into his honest eyes and saw a future built on respect. She smiled and said yes. Meanwhile, Amaka's life became small and lonely. Her fashion business failed because people no longer trusted her. Old friends avoided her. She became a shadow of her former self, a lesson to all who knew her story. She often thought of Chama and the friendship she had destroyed for nothing. The fire of her envy had burned out, leaving only cold ashes of regret. The day of Chama's own traditional marriage to Obaina was filled with genuine joy. There was no show-off, just real happiness. The families laughed and danced together. Obaina's people presented their gifts with humble hearts, and Chama's family welcomed them with open arms. It was a celebration of true love, not a competition. As the drummer beat a sweet rhythm, Chama danced, not with pride, but with a graceful joy that came from within. Her smile was soft, her eyes shone with peace. The women sang her praises, not for her beauty, but for her character. They sang about the patient dog that eats the fattest bone. Chama had endured her pain and now she was receiving her reward. Across town, Amaka heard the distant sounds of celebration from Chama's wedding. She sat by her window, alone in the dark. She did not cry. She just listened, finally understanding that true victory is not in taking what someone else has, but in building something good and true for yourself. Chama and Obaina started their life together in a simple but happy home. Their love was built on a foundation of trust, patience, and mutual respect. They faced challenges together, and their bond grew stronger each day. Chama often told young girls in her family, "Let your heart be content with what is truly yours. What is built on sand will be washed away, but what is built on rock will stand." Years later, Chama became a mother to a beautiful baby girl. As she held her daughter, she thought about the lessons of her life. She promised to teach her child about the importance of true friendship, the poison of envy, and the strength that comes from a good heart. Her story of pain had become a foundation for her daughter's wisdom. One day, at the market, Chama saw Amaka from a distance. Amaka was selling plain wrappers at a small stall, her once vibrant spirit now faded. Their eyes met for a brief second. Amaka quickly looked away, ashamed. Chama felt a pang of sadness for her old friend, but she did not stop. She had chosen to keep moving forward, and her path was now bright. Chama's life was a testament to the old saying that the sun always shines again after the storm. She had lost a friend and a fiancé, but she had gained her own strength, a loving husband, and a peaceful future. She had learned that sometimes, the end of one thing is the beautiful beginning of another. And so, the tale of Chama and Amaka is told to this day. It teaches us that trust is a precious gift that must be guarded. It warns us that envy is a dangerous fire that burns the one who holds it. But most of all, it gives us hope that no matter how deep the betrayal or how dark the night, with a good heart and strength of spirit, a new and brighter dawn will always come. If it were you, would you accept David back? We hope you love the story. Kindly share with your friends, subscribe and comment.